Miss Wrong, are you okay? Is there anything uncomfortable? Just go to the toilet, how can you fall so badly? What should I do now? She is hurt on her face and all her makeup is spent. The engagement banquet is about to begin in 5 minutes. Time is too late. For a while, Rong Xian only felt that her ears were chattering, as if countless birds were calling. She blinked again, and her vision slowly became clear. After returning to Qingming, she saw 2 strange girls looking at her with concern. She remembered that she was reading a novel in the last second, so why did she get to such a strange place in a blink of an eye? She wanted to ask what happened, but suddenly found herself speechless. She opened her mouth, trying hard to speak, but she still couldn't help it. What's wrong? Miss Wrong, are you okay now? If you are okay, just nod your head, okay? In addition to the pain on her face and speechlessness, Rong Xian felt that she was quite okay. After she heard these words, she nodded subconsciously. The makeup artist Xiaomei was finally relieved to see Rong Xian nodding. She and another hairstylist Yu carefully helped Rong Xian up. Yu said in a worried tone, Miss Rong, if I knew I would go to the bathroom with you, who knows? Xiaomei interrupted her quickly, her voice low and anxious, now that this is boring, we were invited by Mr. Liu. Even if there is an emergency, we must properly handle it. Yu bit her lower lip anxiously, now that her face is like this, the effort we just spent was wasted. After arriving in the dressing room, Xiaomei immediately closed the door of the dressing room. She asked Yu to help Rong Xian on the sofa, and she turned around to look for something in the makeup box. Xiaomei's tone was very calm, don't panic, I remember I brought a big red wedding veil over, just enough to cover the whole face. And today's dress is also red, which fits well, I will use it later. A few flowers will be decorated on the veil. After a while, Xiaomei found the veil, is there a medicine box here? You can help Miss Rong treat the wound on her face quickly. Maybe it was infected by Xiaomei's calmness, and Yu quickly calmed down. Today's engagement banquet is very important and should not be missed. She found the medicine box in the corner and found the cotton swabs and iodine. The movements were very neat, Miss Rong, there may be some pain later, but it will heal soon. Your wound must be treated immediately, or you will grow like this. It looks good, but it won't be good to leave scars later. Rong Xian was still a bit at a loss, but as the two of them had more and more conversations, an impossible thought began to pop up in her heart. Isn't she wearing a book? Because of all the things in front of her, the plot in the novel The Love of the Giants, Gu Shao, fuck me that she had read before was so similar. In the novel, the female partner Rong Xian, who had the same name and surname as her, tried to escape the marriage on the day of her engagement with the male lead, and was arrested by someone from Father Rong. But the female partner did not give up. She wanted to sneak away in the name of the toilet, but she didn't expect to be pushed hard from behind when she sneaked to the door of the toilet. I don't know why there is a lot of water on the toilet floor. The female partner fell so hard that her whole face was knocked open. Although there is no evidence, the female partner felt that this was the strategy of her stepmother and stepsister envoy. After realizing this, the female partner broke out. She is only 17 years old this year, just in her second year of high school, impulsive and irritable. Regardless of other people's obstacles, she recklessly put a wounded face into a fight with her stepsister Rong Yi at the engagement party. Because the female partner was greatly stimulated when she was a child, she may have resisted communicating with others in her heart, so she has been unable to speak for these years. She couldn't speak, she couldn't express her dissatisfaction through words, she could only use her actions to express her unsatisfactory heartily, and had a big drama at the engagement party. The engagement banquet was not cancelled. In the end, she was engaged to the male lead, but because of this, she also completely offended Gu's family. Gu's family is a top-notch giant, who values face most, but in front of so many guests, she stamped their faces on the ground, leaving them faceless. The female partner didn't know that this engagement banquet was the result of her grandfather's expense, begging for her in vain, so that after 100 years of him, she could have a reliable trust. It's a pity that the female partner didn't know the grandpa's good intentions, and she personally destroyed this century's engagement banquet. The female grandfather Liu Lao was in poor health, and the engagement banquet passed away not long after. Later, a few months later, the Yonggu family cancelled their marriage contract for various reasons. Then, the heroine appeared. After the heroine appeared, there was nothing left for a female partner. After recalling the plot of the novel, Rong Xian finally knew what was going on. She had read this novel almost before she put it on, so she knew that the original body had not guessed wrong. It was indeed her stepsister Rong Yi who pushed her down, in order to prevent the engagement banquet from being held smoothly. Rong Yi met Gu Yat, the youngest son of the Gu family, a long time ago, and fell in love with him at first sight, but it was a pity that he did not have the opportunity to contact him. This time the original body was able to be engaged to Gu Yat. Rong Yi felt jealous after knowing that she could not get it, and did not want the original body to get it. She knew that the original body was irritable and couldn't control her emotions well, so she designed this one and let the original body destroy the engagement banquet by herself. Just thinking of this, Rong Xian felt a pain on her face. Yu Yu's tone was obviously apologetic. "Miss Rong, bear with me. Rong Xian's appearance is extremely delicate, she looks like an elf who has strayed into the world, ethereal and elegant, but it is a pity that she has a large area of scars on her face at the moment. It abruptly destroyed this beauty." Both Yu Yu and Xiaomei knew that there was something wrong with this fall. Even if they fell, it didn't make sense to fall forward. In general, if you slip, the whole person will fall back, and the face will never hurt so badly. But fortunately, Rong Xian has no other discomforts, and now there is no time to investigate so much. The top priority is to make this engagement banquet successfully held. Other things can be calculated slowly in the future. Rong Xian blinked. Yu Yu's movements were actually very gentle. Although the wound on her face was a little painful when she rubbed the medicine, she could bear it. Yu Yu looked at Rong Xian, who was well behaved and quiet in front of him, a little strange for a while. She remembered that Rong Xian's face was still full of resentment, dissatisfaction and viciousness not long ago, but at this moment, all these negative emotions have disappeared, and only gentleness is left. In fact, seeing the resentment on Rong Xian's face before, she was not surprised, only distressed. She and Xiaomei were invited by Mr. Liu, and even the dresses were prepared by Mr. Liu himself. It can be said that Rong's family didn't have much chance to intervene in this engagement banquet. She knew the depth of the wealthy family, but did not expect it to be so deep. Liu Lao obviously guarded Rong's family, especially Rong Xian's father and Rong Yao's current wife Jining. But they didn't expect that they would still have this accident. Fortunately, there is still a solution. Yu Yu acted neatly to help Rong Xian apply the potion, and finally a smile appeared on her face. "Miss Rong, this wound will take a few days to heal. Don't forget to apply the potion when you go back." Xiaomei helped Rong Xian put on the veil properly, and said, "Apply the medicine every day, and after the face is good, it won't be any different from before." After helping Rong Xian to get the look, Xiaomei was finally relieved. Rong Xian's dress is very colorful. It was specially designed by Liu Lao, who spent more than 1 million yuan specially inviting a foreign fashion designer to design it, which is unique in the world. Although it is a bit strange to have a veil covering the whole face, there is only this way now. Xiaomei thinks that this look is no problem for attending tonight's engagement banquet, and the additional flowers she added are very well embellished. At this time, the door of the dressing room was knocked. Xiaomei locked the door when she came in just now, so people outside could not get in. She checked again and opened the door after making sure everything was ready. Tonight's waiter stood outside the door, and the waiter said respectfully, "Is Ms. Rong ready?" Xiao Mei nodded, it's ready. Okay, please come with me, Miss Rong. Xiao Mei hesitated for a while, and finally gritted her teeth and followed. As Rong Xian's makeup artist, she accompanied Rong Xian to the banquet hall, although it was a bit inappropriate, but it was fair. She was afraid that there would be any accidents on the road, so she could only follow it cheeky. Rong Xian wore a veil and followed the waiter quietly. After knowing the plot, she is not very panicked now that she can't speak, because she knows it is temporary. The original body did not speak because she had been greatly stimulated before, and her heart resisted speaking, and over time she really couldn't speak. But now after changing to her, she doesn't resist speaking in her heart, and this situation can gradually improve. She can speak again, but it will take a while. In the plot, the original body has been stimulated so much before, but the author has not revealed the secret for a long time, and may reveal the secret later, but Rong Xian has not seen it yet. Rong Xian has a hunch in her heart, always feeling that this stimulation is not easy. But from a better perspective, she is now a rich second-generation rich, not short of money. Now that you have worn the book, you can only take a step forward. Like I abducted the male protagonist, please collect it, I abducted the male protagonist. The literature update is the fastest. After following the waiter to the banquet hall, Rong Xian knew how grand this engagement banquet was. The scene is full of clothes and temples, soft music flowing in the air, and the wonderful smell of champagne. Those present were all heavyweight guests. Not long after Rong Xian arrived, an old man was pushed over by a middle-aged man in a wheelchair. Although Rong Xian didn't inherit the memory of the original body, she guessed that this kind-faced old man should be the original body's grandfather. She didn't guess wrong, because the old man said gently, "Xiao Xian, you are so beautiful tonight, and Grandpa is really happy for you." Rong Xian could not speak, so she nodded gently. After the old man noticed her veil, he asked Xiao Mei strangely, "Why do you wear her veil?" Xiao Mei lowered her head guiltily, and said nothing. One more old man is transparent and immediately realizes what might have happened just now. There was anger on his face, and there was incredible, but after the anger, only deep helplessness was left. He is still alive, Rong Xian always has so many conditions, what if he died? He really didn't worry about Rong Xian being alone in this world. Finding a reliable husband for Rong Xian should be the last thing he can do for this child. Gu's family style is rigorous and upright, and it is still worth entrusting for life. I hope Gu's family will not let him down. Old Lu sighed and motioned for Rong Xian to lean closer. He gently shook Rong Xian's hand. Even though there were 1,000 words in his heart, he only converged into one simple and sincere sentence in the end. "My son, Grandpa doesn't ask for anything else, but only asks you to be able to get along with Xiao Gu in the future." The little Gu in Lao Lu's mouth is Gu Ye, who is about to become Rong Xian's fiancé. Rong Xian knew very well that sooner or later the male lead was the female lead, and she was just a female lead who didn't have a lot of roles. But she couldn't bear to break the old man's beautiful expectation for the future, and under Lu Lao's expectant eyes, she nodded slowly. Old Lu smiled contentedly. When Rong Xian listened to Mr. Lu's words, there was a sudden burst of noise not far away. She subconsciously straightened up slowly. "I saw that today's male protagonist Gu Ye was enthusiastically surrounded by a group of brothers, walking slowly like a star Gongaiu. Because today is an engagement banquet, he is wearing a white shirt and black suit, and a black tie around his neck. His tie was loose, his suit jacket was unbuttoned, and he was half open. The white shirt was not completely tied in his suit pants. A few buttons were unbuttoned on it, and his collarbone was looming. With one hand in his pocket, he looks lazy and casual. His hair should have been styled, but it hasn't been waxed, it looks natural and casual. This is the first time Rong Xian has seen the male lead. I have to say that Gu Ye, as the male lead, does have a unique charm. His figure and appearance are all one in a million. The facial features are profound, the black eyes are dark, with a sense of mixed blood. As for his overall temperament, he is just like his name, full of youthfulness and terribly wild. Many people know that Gu's family has 3 children. The eldest daughter, Gu Wan, is married and has children and is currently living abroad. The second son, Gu Yaezai, is enrolled in a prestigious university. The youngest son Gu Yat, who is the same age as the original, is also in the second year of high school. Obviously there is an excellent second son Gu Yaezai in front of him, but the Gu family's parents favor the younger son alone. Their hearts are turned to the limit. Gu's father has publicly said that his family business will be inherited by the younger son. The other 2 children can only get a part of the shares, and there will be no more. Knowing that the Gu family would be handed over to Gu Ye in the future, many people started to please Gu Ye. So after Gu Ye arrived, the atmosphere of the entire banquet hall was ignited. A group of his brothers are very good at coming, and the number of his brothers is too much. The scene is very lively for a while. Today's heroes and heroines appeared, and the host immediately took the microphone on stage. With a smile in his voice, he slowly said in a broadcast accent, "Dear guests, good evening. I am honored that you can take time out of your busy schedule to come to the engagement banquet for Mr. Gu Ye and Ms. Rong Xian. Engagement is no better than marriage, it's much simpler in terms of the ceremony. What's more, today's 2 protagonists are only 17 years old and both are still in high school. It is too far away from the day they got married. It's really hard to say what the future holds." After the host finished the opening remarks, he immediately cut to the topic. "Next, please invite Mr. Gu Ye and Ms. Rong Xian to come on stage and exchange engagement rings." Xiao Mei helped Rong Xian to the stage with all her heart. She was really afraid that something would happen again. Rong Xian wears a veil on her head, although she is not invisible at all. It is somewhat inconvenient to walk, so she has been earnestly looking down at the path on her feet. Gu Ye seemed to glance at her, but it didn't seem to be. The atmosphere was so enthusiastic. Rong Xian was directly facing the engagement ceremony as soon as she wore the book, which was really a bit hectic. After arriving on stage, the host's joyous and festive voice sounded, "Now, I would like to ask Mr. Gu Ye to put on an engagement ring for Ms. Rong Xian." After taking the stage, Xiao Mei retreated far aside, and the host was a little far away. For a while, only Rong Xian and Gu Ye were left on this square inch of land. Rong Xian reacted 2 times slowly. At this moment, Gu Ye's casual voice sounded, "Hands." "Hand? Oh." Rong Xian raised his hand, and the staff came over with the ring box at the right time. Gu Ye picked up the ring from the box and put the engagement ring into her fingertips casually. Off stage, a large group of Gu Ye's brothers were watching the scene lively on stage. Ning Zikan was overjoyed, "Ha ha 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 ha, the boss is engaged? Really engaged? How do I feel like I'm still dreaming?" The big guy Hao Qiang touched his shoulder with his fist and smiled on his face, "I also feel like I'm dreaming. I haven't talked about love in old Dalian. This time I have a fiancé directly, ha ha ha, this is skipped. How many steps? It's really enough for me to laugh for a year." The 2 laughed loudly. At this time, Sheng Xiao frowned and asked, "Why is this, Rong Xian wearing a veil?" Ning Zikan and Hao Qiang also reacted when Sheng Xiao said this. "When I was engaged, I brought a veil to cover my entire face, and I could only vaguely see the outline of the face, but I couldn't see the details. Although there are flowers on it, it is a bit chic, but even chic, it is not suitable, right?" Ning Zikan's brain was wide open. Couldn't it be for marriage? Hao Qiang said, "It's impossible for your mother to replace it." Sheng Xiao propped his chin with one hand and pondered for a while, "I think it's impossible to get married. It's not in ancient times. It's impossible for the Rong family to do that if you can't hide it for marriage these days." Ning Zikan spread his hands together, "That's not a substitute for marriage. Why don't you dare to show your true colors by wearing a veil? It's not because it's ugly, I'm sorry. Ning Zikan originally said it casually, but after saying this, he and the other two people were silent. Not to mention, it is really possible. For example, they are not ugly, and they are high profile. If they got engaged by themselves, they would definitely want everyone to see their faces and praise them for their good looks. Wear a veil? Impossible. Hao Qiang groaned, the boss is so handsome, if he is, then isn't he bloody? While several people were talking, another friend of Gu Yi's old Jay came over and said what he had learned. I don't know if you have heard of something. Ning Zikan was full of gossip and asked, what's the matter? Old Jay sullened his face, I heard that Rong Xian can't speak. Ning Zikan, Hao Qiang, and Sheng Xiao made a sound at the same time. Ning Zikan couldn't believe it, can't speak? Deaf and dumb. Old Jay shook his head, that's not true, it's not natural. I heard that I was stimulated before, so I couldn't talk anymore. When the words fell, several people were silent at the same time, and they didn't know what to say. Ning Zikan, who is still the simplest in mind, said what everyone said, it turns out to be a little mute. It's so pitiful. Hao Qiang patted Ning Zikan hard, what are you talking about? Don't talk nonsense. Ning Zikan shrugged, isn't I suffocating for the boss? I don't know what the boss parents think. With an extra fiancé, she might look ugly or dumb. Isn't this blood loss? Old Jay shook his head, his parents spoil him so much, and now they still agree to let him get married. I guess there is really no room for change. After speaking, several people shook their heads and sighed. On the stage, Gu Ye naturally saw Rong Xian's eye-catching veil. After he put on Rong Xian's ring, he raised his hand to uncover the veil on her face. After seeing the corner of Rong Xian's eye, he snapped his action faster than thinking, separating Gu Yi's hand. Up! That pop was crisp and loud, even if the audience was full of voices, it could not be ignored. After Rong Xian heard this, she was stunned. It didn't hurt to be beaten, but it was the first time that Gu Ye was treated like this. He raised his eyebrows and said lazily, little daughter-in-law, can't look at your face. Rong Xian was stunned again when she heard the three words little wife. Although Gu Ye was so close, she knew the plot very clearly in her heart that Gu Ye just looked saucy and wild. This is just a false surface. In fact, it is difficult for him to be tempted by a person. Even the heroine had worked hard for a long time before Gu Yi's tightly closed heart began to loosen slowly. Rong Xian couldn't speak, and naturally couldn't respond, she quietly looked down at her toes. Hey! Gu Ye couldn't see her face clearly through a veil, and naturally couldn't see her expression. He was a little irritable for a while, why don't you speak? At this time, another staff member happened to walk over with the ring box, and Rong Xian took the ring and prepared to put it on Gu Ye. But it may be that Rong Xian did not speak, and he did not intend to cooperate. Both hands were hanging on his side, and he did not lift up after a long time. 17-year-old Gu Ye is still very casual. Because his family is so good, his parents have loved him since he was a child, so he mostly does everything he wants. Now he has not learned to take into account the occasion and the emotions of others. Because most of the time, it was others who followed him and held him instead of him following others, so he lived more frivolously than most people. Rong Xian was sure that Gu Ye really dared not cooperate. In fact, if Gu Ye didn't cooperate with her, Rong Xian didn't feel much in her heart. She was worried that the original grandpa would be disappointed. She knew that Liu Lao really wanted to see the original body live well, and had made great efforts for it. In the book, this engagement banquet finally broke up. Although the two couples were still engaged, they actually planted hidden dangers. The engagement banquet did not go smoothly, and it was not Gujia or Rongjia that was most disappointed, but Liu Lao. But she also knew that if Gu Ye didn't want to cooperate, no one said it would work. It is already a miracle that he can agree to the marriage of Gu's father, Gu's mother, and the Rong family. Who can expect him to do more? So Rong Xian stood quietly. Time passed bit by bit. The staff on the side saw this scene with a dazed face, even the host couldn't help it, and asked softly what was wrong. The audience was slightly affected by the confrontation on the stage. Rong Xian was too quiet, too calm, and too calm. She didn't feel much care. In the end, Gu Ye was the first to lose. He raised his hand irritably, turned his head away, not looking at Rong Xian. This was the first time he had made concessions to a girl. Before, even if a girl cried at him, he would never give up. Rong Xian pursed her lips and slowly put the ring on his fingertips under the envious and jealous eyes of the host and staff on the side. The ring exchange ceremony ended, and this time the engagement banquet was successfully completed. Ha ha ha, there will be double updates in the last few days. Little red envelopes will be randomly dropped every day. Little cuties leave a lot of comments. Like I abducted the male protagonist, please collect it, I abducted the male protagonist. The literature update is the fastest. Those who watched this scene in the audience squeezed a sweat subconsciously. Ning Zikan wiped his forehead, and said with lingering fear, I thought the boss was going on strike. The big guy Hao Qiang scratched his head and said, actually, I think so too. Just now Gu Yeming showed an uncooperative look. They didn't bother to raise their hands. They almost thought the engagement banquet was cold. Fortunately, it was just a false alarm, and finally the engagement banquet went smoothly. The two successfully exchanged engagement rings, and the host applauded first. There was thunderous applause in the audience. More than a dozen of Gu Yi's brothers joined in, applauded and cheered, pushing the atmosphere of the scene to a new climax. Mother Gu's face was filled with joy and sorrow. The son is engaged. It was originally a great thing, but the wrong family's child. Father Gu patted her on the shoulder, and comforted, that child is really pitiful too. Old Lu spoke to us in a low voice. There should be no way. We can help if we can. Gu's mother nodded, and to be honest, she also felt distressed for Rong Xian, and she couldn't bear to let her youngest son marry her no matter how she asked for someone else. This is the end of the matter, and it's no use thinking more. Thinking about this, her face reappeared with a perfect smile, and she greeted the other wives. After Rong Xian stepped down, Gu Ye reunited with his group of brothers. When he stepped off the stage, others surrounded him enthusiastically. A group of people were chattering and curious, and kept asking him questions. Boss, how does it feel to be engaged? Excited. Boss, why did you stop moving suddenly? I thought you didn't want to get engaged, which really scared me. Boss, from now on, you have a fiancé, ha 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 ha. Boss. Gu Ye put his hands in his pockets and waved his hands, let them play by themselves, don't bother him. After the distant brothers were disgusted and too annoying, they were very winking and went to have fun on their own. There were a dozen of them, but now there are only the three closest to them. Gu Ye kicked the carpet, his tone was a little irritable, and also a little novel. She just ignored Lao Zi. Hey, this is the first time I have encountered this. The people Gu Ye met before, regardless of male or female, regardless of age, were extremely enthusiastic towards him. Reincarnation is a technical job, and obviously, he has cultivated to the extreme in this job. He was born in Rome, money, status, everything. It was the first time he met him and ignored him. On the occasion just now, he couldn't slap his parents in the face of so many guests, no matter how capricious he was. In the end, he had to take a step back and make a marriage appointment first. He is really irritable now. Hearing Gu Yi's words, Ning Zikan, Hao Qiang, and Sheng Xiao were silent. Gu Ye realized something and snorted, "What's the matter? Is there anything else I can't let me know?" A few people looked at each other, and finally Ning Zikan took a step and bit his head and said, "Boss, I heard." "Okay. She can't talk." Gu Ye thought he had heard it wrong, and asked again, "What?" Ning Zikin's voice became louder. I said, she, Rong Xian, can't talk. Hao Qiang hesitated for a moment, and then said, I heard that she was greatly stimulated when she was a child, and she refused to communicate with others in her heart. She was very resistant to speaking. As time passed, she couldn't speak. Gu Ye gave a low voice. What the is this? Before, his parents didn't tell him anything, they just said that he would marry him. He didn't even have a choice. He didn't know the age, appearance, temperament, and family status of the other party. Before he could react, it was already today's engagement banquet. He didn't even know what his fiancé was called before, but only today did he learn from the host population that his fiancé is called Rong Xian. It is estimated that such unmarried couples are the same in this world. Are there still unmarried couples who are less familiar than them? No more. The most funny thing is that the engagement rings are all exchanged, and he still doesn't know what his fiancé looks like. It is estimated that he would not recognize each other when he met on the road in the future. Hao Qiang plucked up the courage to ask, Boss, are you angry? Gu Ye snorted and touched his pocket subconsciously. He didn't touch the cigarette. He was less patient by 2 points. I'm angry with a little mute? So am I still a person? Although he is not very personal, but if he bullies a little mute and gets angry with a little mute, then he is really human. Sheng Xiao looked worried. Boss, what can you do in the future? Gu Ye raised his head and glanced at him, then returned to his inattentive tone. What else can I do? I just called a little daughter-in-law, what do you think? Ning Zikin laughed twice. Little daughter-in-law, this is a good name, ha 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 ha. Ning Zikin laughed happily, but Hao Qiang and Sheng Xiao couldn't laugh, they both felt worthless for Gu Ye. No matter how she looked at it, Rong Xian was not good enough for Gu Ye. She was as handsome as Gu Ye and had a good family background. She couldn't find any girl. But the target of the engagement was an ugly and dumb person, and she was very angry. But now they are still high school students, and there are still many years before they get married. After so many years, no one knows what will happen. Maybe when will they break the marriage contract? This marriage contract, at first glance, was not equal. Rong Xian was obviously shorter than Gu Ye. It is estimated that Rong Xian will be the end of Gu Ye's fiancé. It is absolutely impossible to be Mrs. Gu. Thinking of this, they were relieved again. Anyway, it's just a few years of work, and I'll probably say goodbye in the future. A few years have passed very quickly, so don't worry about it. On the other side, as soon as Rong Xian stepped down, her stepmother Jining and stepsister Rong Yi came over. As for her father, Rong Yao, he should be greeting Gu's parents. Jining was able to marry Rong Yao as a remarriage, and his looks and methods were naturally not bad. She is in her 40s, but she is dressed very young, wearing a white D-parent dress, slender figure, well-dressed, and looks like a little girl in her 20s. There were not many people nearby, only a few of them were there. Because there were no outsiders, Rong Yi acted extremely arrogantly. Rong Yi is only a few months older than Rong Xian, and she looks a lot like her mother Jining, with an oval face and almond eyes. After putting on makeup, she is also a beauty compared to ordinary people. But this face is not enough to see in front of the original body. If Rong Yi hates Rong Xian the most, it must be her face. Obviously the two are half-parents, but their looks are very different. It happened that Rong Yi was compared to the mud. How could this make her willing? Rong Yi is only 18 years old this year, but it may be that when she was a child, her mother was Rong Yao's junior. She has experienced more, so she seems to be a lot more mature than Rong Xian. She put her arms around her chest, glanced at Rong Xian's veil, and sneered, "Sister, are you shameful? Otherwise, why are you wearing the veil?" Rong Yi naturally knew why Rong Xian wore a veil. She did the things. How could she not know? She said this deliberately now, just to irritate Rong Xian. As soon as she saw Rong Yi, Rong Xian knew that she was looking for trouble again. She was thankful that the body was temporarily unable to speak. Because she couldn't speak, she didn't need to say anything or respond. If she didn't speak, no one would find that Rong Xian was no longer the Rong Xian she used to be. The description of the original body in the book is gloomy, depressed, with no smile on his face all the time, and his eyes full of resentment towards everyone. All are negative words. The original body hates this world and hates everyone. But the original body has become like this. In Rong Xian's view, it is excusable. Any normal person, under the pressure of his stepmother and stepsister all the year round, can't do it normally. When Rong Xian first read the novel The Love of the Giants, Gu Shao, fuck me, she was embarrassed and emotional about the life of the female partner. The original body is extreme, paranoid, and gloomy, but is this what she wants? She certainly didn't want to be like this herself. When the original mother was still alive, she was also a spoiled little princess. The original body in the book is the reality version of Cinderella. When she was a child, she had a superior life and a happy family, but after her mother passed away and her father remarried, she was oppressed by her stepmother and stepsister. But she was not as lucky as Cinderella. No fairy godmother made a pumpkin carriage for her, no crystal shoes, no blockbuster dance party for her, and no prince who saved her from fire and water. The only grandfather who was dedicated to her died later, and the marriage contract was later dissolved. The female match has nothing to the end. Now that Rong Xian has become the female partner, she naturally doesn't want to end up like a real body. But to please the male lead, hold his thigh, and prevent him from meeting the female lead, it is absolutely impossible. She just wants to stay away from her original family, study hard, take a good university entrance exam, and honor her grandfather when he is still alive. Then live this life well. This is enough. Ha ha ha, the heroine is only temporarily miserable. I can make a small face in the next chapter. Like I abducted the male protagonist, please collect it. I abducted the male protagonist. The literature update is the fastest. In a short period of time, Rong Xian has roughly made plans for the future. Studying is not difficult for her, she just got the admission letter from the top 3 prestigious schools in China before she wears the book. Even if she wears the book, the knowledge is still in her mind. If you get a good result in the exam, it should be no problem to win a few competition awards. Although she looks a bit miserable now, it's not too miserable. She is not short of money now. It has been written in the book that although Rong Yao is not a good father, he is still very generous to the living expenses of the daughter who was left behind. She feels that the problem is not big and does not panic. When Xiao Mei on the side heard these words, her face flushed with anger. It is said that every family has scriptures that are difficult to recite, but she never expected that the water in the Rong family would be so deep. It's a pity that Rong Yao is now developed, and he doesn't listen to Liu Lao talking anymore. Moreover, Rong Yao is Rong Xian's father anyway. Liu Lao wanted to take Rong Xian away, but Rong Yao didn't agree, and in the end he had to stop. It is said that a motherless child is like a grass. Xiao Mei finally understands this scene before her. Rong Xian was really miserable. Fortunately, everything went smoothly at the engagement banquet just now, and she sighed. It's funny to see Rong Yi's envious and jealous look now. Xiao Mei rolled her eyes, and Rong Yi's thoughts were too obvious. It is estimated that she has liked Gu Ye for a long time. It is useless for her to be jealous. Now Gu Yi's fiancé is Rong Xian, not her. Rong Yi waited for a long time before Rong Xian's anger rose. She was a little confused, but also a little anxious. Rong Xian doesn't get nervous, so how could this engagement party mess up? The engagement rings have all been exchanged. Could this engagement banquet pass so smoothly? Rong Yi was full of unwillingness. Knowing that she should have used a little bit more strength, she directly pushed Rong Xian over. If Rong Xian fainted, wouldn't this engagement banquet be automatically not held? Although Rong Yi had a vicious mind, she was only 18 years old now, and she hadn't had the guts to do more excessive things. Just pushing Rong Xian to the limit was actually already at her limit. But what she expected did not happen. She couldn't help stomping her foot. Why didn't Rong Xian go crazy? As usual, Rong Xian must have been arguing regardless. What happened today? Does Rong Xian have a crush on Gu Ye? But she had liked Gu Ye a long time ago. How could she watch her most annoying Rong Xian with the person she likes? Absolutely not. Rong Xian is not making trouble, what can I do now? Jining patted her daughter's hand, motioning her to calm down. Jining looked at Rong Xian's face that looked exactly like her mother and couldn't help but sneered. She knew Rong Yao first, because her family background was not good. Rong Yao did not marry her later, but married Lu, who was Rong Xian's biological mother. She has been a junior for more than 10 years, and finally turned into a regular 4 years ago. So she named her daughter Rong Yi, with easy pronunciation. I just hope that my daughter's life will be easier. Lu looks good, so what? Isn't she the current winner? Who remembers Lu now? Everyone only knows that Mrs. Rong is her. She lives in the big villa, calls the servants, and lives the life of the rich wife. In the same way, Rong Xian looks better than her daughter, so what? With her watching, the final winner in life must be her daughter, not Rong Xian. Even if Rong Xian is now climbing up Gu's family, this marriage contract will sooner or later be yellow. At this time, Rong Yao came over. Rong Yao is nearly 40 years old, but he looks personable. At the beginning, he relied on this good-looking skin to make Lu fall in love with him. He didn't look at Rong Xian, but said lightly, "The dinner has begun, let's go over." The banquet of this century engagement banquet is naturally very good, the dishes are rich, and the wine is like running water. The band is playing wonderful music, and the atmosphere is peaceful and beautiful. Although everyone had their own concerns, at least one of the dinners was a good one. Finally, when the dinner is over, the group can go back to each house. Old Lu suddenly said, "Let's Xiao Gu send Xiao Xian home," just in time for them to get in touch with each other on the way. When Rong Yi heard these words, her nails were pinched into her palm. Jining's expression remained unchanged, and she maintained Madame Rong's manner. Gu's father and Gu's mother thought that Mr. Lu's idea was a good idea. The two children were engaged anyway. They had never seen each other before, and now there is no harm in getting familiar with them. Mother Gu looked at her little son and said softly, "Yao, are you sending off Xiao Xian?" Gu Ye glanced at Rong Xian, who was standing quietly and obediently not far away, and tweeted, "All right." Gu Ye is not yet 18, so it was the driver who drove the car. He just went home with Rong Xian. The space in the back seat of the Bentley was very empty, but Rong Xian and Gu Ye were separated by a person. Today's engagement banquet seemed nothing, but Rong Xian, as one of the protagonists, still felt a little tired. As soon as she walked through, she was in a state of chaos. She was applying medicine and sorting out the plot. Before she could fully react, she went to the hall of the century engagement banquet. There was a small episode at the engagement banquet and it almost didn't go smoothly. After the end, the stepmother and stepsister came to find a sense of existence again. It can be said that she has been spinning around for a few hours at night, and she has no time to rest. There was quiet music flowing in the car, maybe it was really tired, or the music was too quiet, and Rong Xian fell asleep without knowing it. Gu Ye heard the regular breathing sound beside him, turned his head and took a look, only to find that Rong Xian was asleep with his head against the car window. Even in the car, Rong Xian didn't know why, but he still didn't take off the eye-catching veil. Gu Ye originally wanted to take off her veil, but he raised his hands, and finally put it down. Although he is not a good person, he does whatever he wants, but he doesn't want to do things that are not good, nor can he do them. It's been a long time since I was engaged, and I don't even know what his fiancé looks like. I guess he is the only one in the world. I don't know if Rong Xian noticed Gu Yi's movements in her sleep. She suddenly woke up from her dream. She blinked slowly, not knowing where the car was now. At this time, the driver asked in front, "Gu Xiao, where are we going now?" Gu Ye was a little irritable. He took a lighter and played with it. "Go to her house." The driver was stunned, and after a few seconds he asked cautiously, "I know, but where is your fiancé's house?" Gu Ye in a low voice. Maybe he was too busy just now. His parents didn't even tell him where Rong Xian's house was. Maybe they didn't expect this. As for him, how could he remember to ask such little things? Gu Ye raised his dark eyes. Under the dim light, his eyes were bright and deep, like a sea of stars hidden. "Do you know where your home is?" Rong Xian was also stunned after hearing this question. She is not the original body and knows nothing about her situation. She really didn't know where she lived at home. It was the dozens of seconds that Rong Xian was stunned, and Gu Ye mistakenly thought she knew that because she couldn't speak, she couldn't speak. He stretched out his palm, "Just right on my hand." The driver turned on the lights in the car intimately. Rong Xian looked at the slender hands in front of her. Under the warm yellow light above his head, these hands glowed like warm jade. Under Gu Yi's urging gaze, Rong Xian pursed her lips and slowly wrote 4 words on it. "I do not know." In order for Gu Ye to see clearly, Rong Xian writes very slowly. Her fingertips are warm and soft, falling on Gu Yi's palms little by little, as if a feather is scratching gently on it. This feeling is so strange that Gu Ye has never experienced it. In the past, no girl dared to write in his palm. Even if someone dared, he would not let anyone write in his hand. But facing this little mute who couldn't speak, he took the initiative to stretch out his palm. At this moment, his palm was itchy and crunchy, and his fingers shrank slightly subconsciously, and his fingertips accidentally touched Rong Xian's fingers. Rong Xian raised her head and glanced at Gu Ye in surprise after being touched by her fingers. Through the thick lace, she could not clearly see the expression on Gu Yi's face. So, does Gu Ye understand these 4 words now? This chapter drops a small red envelope. Some changes have been made to the character and plot, and there should not be any changes in the future. It is fun to read the article. Like I abducted the male protagonist, please collect it. I abducted the male protagonist. The literature update is the fastest. After Rong Xian finished writing the last stroke of the word Tao, she retracted her hand and waited quietly for Gu Yi's response. Gu Ye didn't react at first. "Finished?" "He just spent a while and finished writing? Is it so fast? Are you sure you are fooling him?" Gu Ye curled his lips, his tone was somewhat cynical, his voice was a little low, and he looked very nice in this narrow space in the car. "Daughter-in-law, are you finished?" Rong Xian was still a little uncomfortable when he heard the name little wife. She was half a beat before nodding. Gu Ye watched Rong Xian wear a veil, little by little, and the lace in front of the veil also flickered, not knowing why she felt a little dazed. He touched his lips, his face was rascal, his tone was his usual inattentive tone, "But I didn't see clearly, what do you say?" Gu Ye changed to a more comfortable posture, without retracting his hand, still spreading it openly. Rong Xian sighed slightly. The male protagonist's temperament at the age of 17 was really mad and unscrupulous. She had to write no, in his hand again. The palms are still itchy, and a little numb. Gu Ye tried his best to ignore the obvious feeling in his hand, and focused his attention on Rong Xian's writing. This time he finally understood it, and she said she didn't know either. Interesting. At this time, the driver in the front seat couldn't help but urged, "Gu Xiao, where do you go?" Gu Ye leaned comfortably in the back seat and said indifferently, "You can drive as you please." Both the driver and Rong Xian were surprised, and the driver asked blankly, "Whatever you want." Why did it turn into a casual drive? "Where are you going?" Gu Ye hummed lightly. Rong Xian really didn't expect Gu Ye to be so self-willed. She thought he would at least make a phone call and ask exactly where her home is, and then send her back. But in fact he really doesn't care. She doesn't know where she is, or where she drives, it doesn't matter to him. The driver glanced at the back seat and found that Gu Ye didn't intend to speak anymore, so he could only go around the city in circles. Anyway, the oil money is reimbursed, not distressed. It is the first time for Rong Xian to ride in a Bentley car, and it feels quite novel. It would be even more perfect if the man sitting next to her was not the protagonist. She really didn't worry if she couldn't go back to Rong's house for the time being. She looked at the scenery outside the window, feeling very peaceful. The night view of this city is very beautiful, the lights are on, the neon is flashing, and the world is stable. There was soft music flowing slowly in the car, and Rong Xian completely regarded it as a drive. It is not too early now, the traffic volume on the road is not too large, and there is not much traffic jam. It's also a kind of first experience to sit in the car and go round and round the city. In the end, when Gu's mother saw that Gu Ye didn't go home, she made a worried call and was about to ask about the situation. Only then did she know that the driver had been teetering in the city because she didn't know the address. Mother Gu was helpless and funny for a while. Why don't you know to call home and ask? Do you dislike the trouble of calling? Gu Ye turned his head and glanced at Rong Xian, and said slowly, no. After saying that, Gu Ye paused for 2 seconds before bending his lips, and deliberately said, isn't this just to communicate more with my little wife? At the engagement banquet, Gu Ye didn't actually look at Rong Xian very much. Until now, he gave her a serious look. After seeing her, the most obvious feeling in his heart was white, his skin seemed to be glowing. The snow-skinned red dress had a strong impact on his vision. I just don't know what it looks like. Mother Gu on the other end of the phone heard this answer and was stunned for 2 seconds. She naturally knew that there was a joke in her son's words. He guessed that he just wanted to have more waves outside. She laughed and said cooperatively, that's good, but it's not early. You and Xiao Xian will have to go to school tomorrow, don't make it too late. After Gu's mother reported Rong Xian's home address, he told Gu Ye to hang up after returning home early. After knowing the address, the driver took Rong Xian to the door of Rong's house in no time. When Rong Xian opened the door to get out of the car, a lazy voice came from behind her. Don't you say goodbye to me. Rong Xian's movement of stepping out of the car door slowed down. He knew that she couldn't speak, so why did he make such a rude request? How did she say goodbye to him? Rong Xian bit her lip, and when she turned her head, she saw that Gu Ye had already raised her hand in front of her. The corner of his lips twitched. Come on, little wife. Rong Xian is actually not happy to have too much involvement with the male lead. According to the plot line, they will dissolve their engagement in a few months. Until the eve of the dissolution of the marriage, the male protagonist did not have any feelings for the female partner. As long as the male lead has a little meaning to the female partner, even if the stepmother and stepsister are constantly making trouble, this marriage contract will not be dissolved so easily. Rong Xian only regarded Gu Ye as a better relationship than a stranger. She raised her hand and scribbled the word goodbye in Gu Ye's hand, which lasted no more than 3 seconds. These words should be the most scribbled Rong Xian has ever written since they wrote them, and even the pen is written throughout. If these words were written on paper, she probably wouldn't even recognize them. She wrote quickly and perfunctorily, her fingertips just lightly touching his palm. After finishing writing, Rong Xian waved her hand and got out of the car without looking back. Gu Ye sighed and discovered for the first time that he was not a RMB. It turned out that there are still people in this world who treat him so perfunctorily and want to stay away from him. It's not Gu Ye's narcissism to feel that he is a RMB. In his previous life, everyone he met liked him. At least on the surface, it is not clear what he thinks in his heart. If he wants to engage in any activity, he doesn't need to be personally notified, and the old man can call for dozens of brothers in 3 minutes. Of course, some are plastic brothers, but there are quite a few close to him. In addition to those of Ningxikan who are often used now, he also has a few hairpins abroad, but if he has anything, he only needs a phone call, no matter if they are there in the early morning or when, they will buy the nearest flight. Come back. Today is the first time he has been treated so perfunctorily. Gu Ye glanced at his palm, there seemed to be the temperature left by Rong Xian. He slowly retracted his hand and said to the driver in front, "Let's go." Rong's villa. Rong Yi was full of eagerness. "Mom, it's been so long, why hasn't she returned? Did she deliberately cling to Gu Ye and don't want to come back?" Jining took a sip of rose tea with a calm tone. "What are you anxious for?" Rong Yi stomped his feet vigorously. "How could I not be in a hurry? When I think of that being with my favorite person now, my heart seems to be burning." Rong Yi sat down beside Jining. "Annoyed to death, Mom, I'm so jealous of her." Jining put the cup on the coffee table with a bang, and a few drops of water came out of the cup. Her tone was a little heavy. What is she to be jealous of? Mom died a long time ago, and she is still a dumb speechless. Jealous of her? You are really going back? Rong Yi didn't know that those words had touched Jining's thunder. Jining looked a little angry now. In fact, she was a little afraid of her mother sometimes, so after Jining's tone became more serious, she did not dare to speak loudly for a while. But she was really jealous of Rong Xian. It was obvious that they were the same father, but Rong Xian was much better looking than her. Jining is good looking. As Jining's daughter, she is not bad, but she just doesn't have the fairy aura of Rong Xian. But that kind of immortality hasn't been very obvious in recent years. These years, Rong Xian's face is full of hostility, and her eyes are full of resentment, and her hostility has deepened every year. But even so, Rong Xian still looks good to make her jealous. Not to mention that Rong Xian is now Gu Yi's fiancé. She only dared to dream of being friends with Gu Ye, but Rong Xian became Gu Yi's fiancé directly. How could this convince her? Jining said slowly, "There is still so much time to get married. I don't know how long this engagement will last." After speaking, the door of the study room upstairs was opened from the inside. Jining and Rong Yi immediately stopped talking. Rong Yao walked out in his pajamas. He asked when he went downstairs, "She hasn't come back yet?" Jining smiled softly, "Not yet. The two children have just got engaged today. I guess they want to get in touch with each other more." Rong Yao said. At this time, the sound of a car happened to be heard outside the door. Rong Yi was the first to react. She hurriedly stood up and said, "It should be the second sister who is back. I'll go and see." Rong Yi moved quickly, but when she hurried over, she still only saw the car's tail lights. Why did she go so fast? She could have said a few more words with Gu Ye. After Rong Xian entered the room, Rong Yao saw the veil she was wearing. She has been wearing this veil at the engagement banquet today. You can take off the veil when you get home. Rong Xian hesitated. When the nanny came over, she took off her veil and handed it to the nanny on the side. After seeing Rong Xian's exposed face, Rong Yao frowned. "Why is your face hurt?" Rong Yi saw Rong Xian's face turned blue, and her eyes were obviously gloating. It would be great if Rong Xian was disfigured directly. Rong Yi was really happy to see her face turned like this. Rong Xian was naturally unable to give Rong Yao any response. Rong Yao was silent for a while and said, "Rong Xian, come with me to the study." Rong Xian originally thought about what happened, but after arriving in the study, Rong Yao directly took out a card from the drawer. "You are now half of Gu's daughter-in-law. Although our family is not as good as the wealthy Gu's family, our family is not short of money. It also costs money to fall in love. I will pay 100,000 yuan to this card every month. If it's not enough, you can tell me again." Rong Xian was sent away since she was a child because there were too many children in her family. The family that adopted her is just an ordinary working family. It was the first time that she had so much money, and when Rong Xian was still a little dazed, Rong Yao had already pushed the card in front of her. Take it away. After talking about the money, Rong Yao glanced at Rong Xian's face and said, the girl's face is very important. Go to the hospital tomorrow for the injuries on your face. Rong Xian knew that the bruise on her face was only serious, but after the bruise was healed, it wouldn't have any effect, but when Honor said so, she still nodded. After talking about these two things, there was silence in the study. At this time Rong Yao's cell phone rang, and he waved his hand to Rong Xian, you go back first. So Rong Xian took the silver OK card and turned and left. After opening the study door, Rong Xian realized that Rong Yi was actually eavesdropping outside. Rong Yi arrogantly said, what did Dad tell you? Rong Xian did not respond to Rong Yi. Rong Yi followed her and said sarcastically, did Dad scold you? That's right, how old you are, and you still make yourself look like this. It's a laugh. Rong Xian continued to walk forward. At this time, Rong Yi said, are you stupid today? You have walked through your room. Where do you want to go now? Rong Xian turned around again when she heard this, and then opened her room, blocking Rong Yi from the door with a bang. Rong Yi stomped her feet bitterly. Originally, she wanted to ask Rong Xian for Gu Yi's WeChat account, but she couldn't speak for a while. But she turned to think about it. Rong Xian probably didn't know Gu Yi's WeChat ID and mobile phone number. After Gu Ye sent the people just now, didn't he just ask the driver to drive away? After thinking about it this way, she finally felt more comfortable. I am really diligent these days. Yesterday is not too bad. Just revise the text. The app is delayed, you can use WAP to watch it like I abducted the male protagonist, please collect it, I abducted the male protagonist. The literature update is the fastest. After arriving in the room, Rong Xian relaxed herself. The decoration of this room is very chic and girly. The bed is full of dolls. The overall color is the light pink that girls like most. In life, Rong Yao never deducted his original body, and he would not give less money. He just doesn't care about the daughter left behind by his original wife. The stepmother and stepsister always oppress the original body, bullying her temporarily unable to speak. Does he know in his heart? Maybe he knew it, but the thing didn't really happen to him, he chose to ignore it and didn't bother to control it. In fact, in the eyes of Rong Xian, a bystander, Rong Yao is essentially a selfish person. He has no one he really loves. He does not love his original wife Lu, nor does he love his wife Jining, who would later marry him. He is always the only one he loves the most. But Rong Xian is not the original body, she doesn't care about Rong Yao's attitude. First, she hung up the dress that was worth more than 1 million yuan specially designed by her grandfather in the closet, and then put the bank card away. After all this was done, she took out a new set of bathrobes and toiletries from the cabinet, went into the bathroom and was ready to take a shower. On the other side, Gu Ye didn't go home after sending Rong Xian, but went directly to Sheng Xiao's house. Sheng Xiao's parents are away all year round, and he is often the only one in the family. Usually they have any gatherings, most of the time they gather in his house. Except for Bengdi, they rarely go outside. He has a song room, a game room, and a chess room at home, so he has everything he wants to play. Gu Ye told Mother Gu that he would not go back at night, and then put the phone back. When he arrived at Chen Xiao's house, it was already early in the morning. There was no sleep on their faces and they were playing games and playing games. The floor was full of empty beer bottles, scattered all over the floor, and there was still yellow beer on the carpet. Gu Ye kicked the wine bottle in front of him disgustingly, and lazily found a place to sit down. After seeing Gu Ye's arrival, Ning Zikan hurriedly put down the mobile phone in his hand and stopped playing the game. "Boss, did you send someone there?" Gu Ye said. Ning Zikan was full of gossip, see the face. Guye took a bottle of mineral water from the side, unwrapped it, took a sip, and said lazily, "No." Ning Zikan frowned upon hearing this. "No, there are still unmarried couples these days? Isn't this the same as the blind marriage in ancient times?" This matter was replaced by him, and he couldn't help but start making trouble. He really loves Guye now. After going smoothly for more than 10 years, he was suddenly notified by his parents that he wanted to marry. The marriage partner is still so hard to say. Hao Qiang scratched his head and suddenly asked, "Boss, how do you write your little daughter-in-law's name?" During the wedding, there will be an enlarged wedding photo in the banquet hall. There are 2 new couples' names on the photo, but this time the engagement party there is no such thing. The 2 met at the engagement banquet for the first time. There is no possibility of wedding photos. Guye was stunned after hearing this question. Hao Qiang didn't know, he didn't know either. Guye couldn't help laughing in a low voice. The engagement was the same as the one that hadn't been made. He didn't even know how to write the character Xian of his fiancée. There was no one. Ning Zikan curled his lips. There are too many characters Xian, beside the characters Wang, beside the characters fire, 3 points of water, the characters beginning with grass, too many. Hao Qiang laughed twice. "I think it's the Xian at the beginning of the grass. Many girls use this word." Ning Zikan retorted, "Maybe it's next to the Japanese character, who knows?" Sheng Xiao glanced at them disgustingly. "Just ask the client directly." Guyi's long legs overlapped. He took out his phone. His expression was a little pale. "I don't have her contact information." "Damn it!" everyone said in unison. Ning Zikan was surprised. "Did you add WeChat?" Hao Qiang was shocked. "Didn't exchange mobile phone numbers." Sheng Xiao's eyes widened. "Don't even have a contact method?" Guye said. "There is really no contact information." Everyone was silent. In the end, it was Ning Zikan who spoke first and asked cautiously, "Or, first ask for a mobile phone number." Guye looked towards the palm of his hand subconsciously. "Open the palm, close it, open it again, close it again." After repeating it several times, the remaining temperature in the palm seemed to disappear completely. Thinking of Rong Xian's dislike of him, he curled his lips, found out the phone number of his dad's assistant, and called directly. He usually finds his dad's assistant for whatever things he has, because the assistant has a heavy workload, and he usually has to serve both the boss and the boss's son. He also needs to be on call 24 hours a day. Ability is strong enough to be able to handle any emergencies quickly and properly, so his dad's salary for his assistant is enough to envy others. After the call was connected, Guye directly sent someone to check Rongxuan's phone number. The assistant was very efficient, and quickly sent his cell phone number to Guye's cell phone. Guye looked at the phone number and was silent for a while, then sent a message. In simple words, "I am Guye." 1 minute passed, 2 minutes passed, 3 minutes passed. There was no response at all. Hao Qiang glanced at the time. It was already 12:30 in the morning. He thought about it and said, "Should be asleep." Ning Zikan curled his lips. "Ordinary girls are engaged, and the fiancé is so handsome. I guess it's not that easy to fall asleep tonight. Insomnia is normal all night. Generally girls do. But if Rong Xian was like that, they didn't know." Guye put his finger on the phone and sent another message, "Asleep." Rong Xian was naturally awake when she received Guye's message. With so many things happening today, her brain and body are already very tired, but she can't fall asleep even too late. She couldn't sleep, so she turned on the light and sat on the bed to watch math. It's already a month now, which means that the final exam will be coming soon, and then the winter vacation will begin. There is always nothing wrong with reading more books now. The phone vibrated. She took a look and found that it was a text message from Guye. She thought that the other party should be fine. She just saved his phone number, but did not reply. After the second message was sent, she did not reply. Said, no, something. Gu Ye raised his eyebrows when he saw these cold words. When Rong Xian got out of the car at night, it really wasn't his illusion. She was really perfunctory to him, and she was really indifferent to him. In the past, others were holding him, following him, what he said is what he said. Now there is a person who is indifferent to him. This experience is really the first time. If people in this world are the same, what's the point? Gu Ye raised a bit of spirit. How do you write your name? Rong Xian. Gu Ye raised an eyebrow. His name sounded pretty good. Little daughter-in-law, add a WeChat. This piece of news passed, like a stone sinking into the ocean, without even a splash. There was really no response this time, because there was no response until it was close. Hao Qiang licked his lips, carefully wording, I guess he fell asleep. Gu Yi's thin lips pressed slightly, and it took only a few seconds to fall asleep so easily. But I don't want to go back. He copied Rong Xian's phone number, posted it directly on WeChat, and then looked up friends. He didn't expect it to be found by him. Rong Xian should be the registered WeChat with her mobile phone number. The WeChat profile picture is Sailor Moon, the name is Xian Xian in a pink heart. He clicked to add. Until dawn, this friend request failed. Rong Xian was woken up by the alarm clock the next day. She had a little insomnia last night, and she fell asleep sooner. After washing, she put the medicine on the mirror. After one day passed, in addition to the bruises on the face, the bruises also showed some color. It is estimated that it will take a week to completely heal. She pursed her lips, went to the room to change into her school uniform, and then went downstairs. Father Rong, Rong Yi, and Jining are already up and sitting at the dinner table. During breakfast, Rong Yi suddenly said to Father Yung like a baby, Dad, I want Gu Yi's cell phone number. Rong Yao glanced at her, what do you want his phone number for? Rong Yi's hands hidden under the dining table clenched slightly, but with a sweet smile on her face, she said, what does he say is my brother-in-law? I want a brother-in-law's phone number, right? Father Rong took a sip of porridge, I will send you his phone number later. Okay, thank you Dad. After speaking, Rong Yi glanced at Rong Xian triumphantly. Rong Xian, Gu Yi's fiancé, probably doesn't have Gu Yi's phone number yet, she has it first. Not only does she need Gu Yi's cell phone number, she also needs Gu Yi's WeChat ID. Rong Xian lowered her head and drank the porridge quietly, not participating in the conversation between them. Rong Yao glanced at Rong Xian's bruised face and asked the nanny to come over with a mask. Today you wear a mask to go to school, the girl's family, pay more attention to your image. I will ask the driver to take you to the hospital to take a look. After Rong Xian finished her breakfast, she silently took the mask from the nanny and put it on. She wanted to say that she didn't need to go to the hospital, but she suddenly thought of going to the hospital this time. Maybe she could still check her throat. She wanted to slowly regain her ability to speak. Thinking of this, she nodded gently. Rong Xian and Rong Yi are in the same high school, but not in the same class. The semester was nearing the end, so even if Rong Xian and Gu Ye were engaged, the family temporarily stopped thinking of transferring them to the same high school, and prepared to make a decision in the next semester. After Rong Yi got in the car, she waited for a message from Father Rong not long. Father Rong sent Gu Yi's mobile phone number to her. Rong Yi happily saved Gu Yi's phone number and sent a message. Student Gu, hello, I'm Rong Yi. 10 minutes passed and the other party did not reply. Rong Yi bit her lip, comforting herself that it's okay. Gu Ye is probably busy now, so he didn't see it. She knows that he is so popular, and it is estimated that there are many girls who send him messages every day, and he should not see it. But if he sees her, he should return, after all, she is also Rong Xian's older sister anyway. Although she didn't want to admit this, but now she wanted to rely on Rong Xian's advantage to get a relationship with Gu Ye first. At this moment, Rong Xian's phone vibrated again in his pocket. After she got in the car, her phone seemed to have vibrated many times. She had ignored it before, but this time, she took out her phone and took a look. I saw in WeChat, Guye has sent 7 or 8 friends to apply. There is a tendency that she keeps applying if she disagrees. The latest friend request was sent just a few seconds ago. Double update. I don't have many messages when I don't say red envelopes, and my heart hurts. 20 drops in this chapter. Good night. Like I abducted the male protagonist, please collect it. I abducted the male protagonist. The literature update is the fastest. In fact, Rong Xian saw this friend apply in the early morning. It was Guyi's usual style, fearing that she didn't know who he was, so there was a short self-introduction in the remarks. In 4 simple words, I am Guye. But even if it's just words, it seems to have the kind of careless feeling he always has. But at that time she was working out a math problem. She didn't want to be distracted, so she put her phone aside, and then she put the matter behind her head as soon as she turned around. After finishing the math problems, she went to sleep, and when she woke up, she naturally forgot the friend's application. She doesn't read WeChat very much, because she always feels that this is the original social circle, not hers. But Rong Xian changed his mind and thought again, she is now the female companion in the book, Rong Xian, and she should have accepted everything from the original body in a logical way. She silently said sorry to the original body in her heart. Rong Xian first approved Guyi's friend application before taking a look at the address book. To her surprise, there were fewer contacts in the address book than she thought. Grandpa, Mother, Tongyu, Monitor. There are only 4 people, one of whom has already gone to heaven and will never be able to respond to her again. The original body did not delete her mother, leaving her in her address book forever. But now there is another person in the address book, her fiancé, Guye. Seeing this extremely simple address book, Rong Xian felt a little distressed for the original body. How tightly closed her heart, hate this world, her friends will be so few. When she was a child, she was also a little princess who could call friends wherever she went. While Rong Xian was still looking at the address book, Guye sent a WeChat message over. Guye, little daughter-in-law, are you free after school? Rong Yi, who was sitting next to Rong Xian, held her mobile phone tightly in her hand, her face full of tension and anxiety. Did Guye see her message? How would he reply to her? He should say hello to her? Or something else? Does he feel strange seeing her message? As soon as Rong Yi thought this in her heart, she immediately denied herself. She is Rong Xian's older sister, and it is certainly not strange to contact him. Why didn't he reply? Rong Yi was nervous all the way, but Guye didn't say a word until the school. Rong Yi felt like an ant was biting in her heart, and she couldn't calm herself down. She bit her lip and sent another message nervously, Student Gu, I wish you a wonderful day, come on. After arriving at school, Rong Xian did not wait for Rong Yi, but Rong Yi did not need her to wait. After getting off the bus, Rong Xian walked directly to the teaching building. She and Rong Yi are not in the same class, she is in the 2nd class, and Rong Yi is in the 10th class. Schools are ranked according to their grades. The higher the class, the better the grades. From the class point of view, the original performance is not bad. After arriving in the classroom, a certain girl sitting in the back row waved to her enthusiastically, Xian Xian. Rong Xian guessed that this girl should be Tongyu in the address book. She tentatively sat down next to the girl who waved her hand. There was nothing strange on the girl's face. It seemed that this was indeed her position. Tongyu looked urgent, Xian Xian, have you done your English homework? Lend me to copy. Rong Xian didn't know what the homework was assigned, and she didn't know if the original body had done it. She gave her school bag directly to Tongyu and asked her to find it herself. Tongyu, I said. She lowered her head and was busy looking for homework books, and cheered and said, Xian, you are so kind. None of Guye slept, and went straight all night. At breakfast, Sheng Xiao approached Guye and hooked his shoulders. Boss, sister-in-law, did you reply? Today is Guye's birthday on the lunar calendar. According to previous years, a group of them would go out to dinner at night, have a good meal, sing a song, and celebrate Guye's birthday. Gu's mother was afraid that Guye hadn't adapted to his engaged status, so she sent a message directly to remind him to ask his fiancée for his birthday today. That's why Guye asked Rongxian if she was free after school. Guye put away the phone blankly, without answering. He drank the milk in a few mouthfuls, and then stood up. Leave, go to school. Sheng Xiao was stunned. Rongxian probably didn't reply, right? Otherwise, the boss will not be this reaction. If Rongxian was present, Sheng Xiao felt that he would definitely hold a fist at Rongxian to show respect. She was too stunned, and she could be so calm in the face of Guye. It was really the first person in history, and I don't know where the courage of the dumb Rongxian came from. Having a fiancé like Guye is the blessing she has cultivated in her lifetime, right? She is actually so cold. Really think she can sit firmly in the position of Guye's fiancé? Don't be kidding me. Sheng Xiao's affection for Rongxian dropped a few degrees, and he wished that Guye would break the marriage contract with Rongxian in minutes. As soon as he arrived in the class, Guye was discovered that he was wearing a ring on his hand. Guye has always been the focus of the crowd. There are too many eyes gathered on him every day. To put it an exaggeration, someone can notice how much his hair grows every day, let alone an extra one in his hand. Ring. Ban Huayura sat in the front row of Guye. She knew about Guye's thoughts and the whole class, but Guye never bothered to respond to her. Yuro turned around and blinked. Gu classmate, why are you wearing a ring on your hand? And the ring is still worn on the ring finger. Wearing a ring on your ring finger indicates that you are either engaged or married. Marriage is definitely impossible. As for engagement, Guye's age shouldn't be possible. Could it be that Guye is in love? Guye generously let others look at the ring, without any intention of hiding it. His usual peach blossoms are really too prosperous. Even if one has 2 flowers, 3 and 4 are okay, but the girls who pursue him always get together, babble and crooked, which makes him very troubled. Now that he is engaged, the peach blossom luck will always be weaker, right? Guye said casually, I'm engaged. Engaged? Guye actually got engaged? Seriously? One stone caused 1,000 waves. Yuro's eyes were almost staring, and her voice was broken. Engaged? With whom? You don't know it. After speaking, Guye lay on the table to make up for his sleep, too lazy to respond. After Guye let go, a group of people surrounded Sheng Xiao, Ning Zikan, and Hao Qiang. This is really the annual news. Guye is so engaged? If the girls in school knew about this, how many people would be heartbroken? Since Guye didn't say it, other people always said it, right? Sheng Xiao and the others are Guye's good brothers. They must know who he is engaged to. A group of people surrounded them wanting to know who Guye's fiancé was, but the 3 were very tight, and none of them confided a word. In fact, they mainly think that what they say is nothing. Anyway, sooner or later they will be replaced, so why bother to let others know? They don't want to waste their feelings. Thinking about this, the 3 of them all looked like old gods, and didn't even say anything about Guye's fiancé's surname, let alone her name. After Tong Yu finished copying his homework, she suddenly realized that Rongxian had been wearing a mask. She tilted her head strangely. Xian, why are you still wearing a mask in the classroom? Rongxian slowly wrote a few words on the paper. My face is hurt. Rongxian's writing is beautiful, with a sharp edge in every character. Obviously she has practiced it. Her characters are similar to those of the original body, but better than those of the original body, so Tong Yu did not find out abnormal. Seeing these words, Tong Yu exclaimed, "Injured? Is it serious? Show me quickly." Rong Xian blinked, took off her mask, gave Tong Yu a look, and then put it on again. Seeing the injury on Rong Xian's face, Tong Yu was full of anger. "Is this injury related to your sister? Is she acting as a demon again?" Rong Xian never expected Tong Yu to say that. It seems that she is really close to the original body, and she should belong to the kind of good friend who talks about everything. Rong Xian continued to write on the paper, "It looks serious, it will be better in a few days." Seeing Rong Xian write this, Tong Yu was relieved. She reminded, Xian, a girl's face is important, you must be careful." Rong Xian nodded with her eyebrows bent. After getting used to the new class for a while, Rong Xian took out his mobile phone and sent a message back to Guyat. "No time." The reason why she is only returning now is not to hang Guyat on purpose, let alone to be too lazy to return. It is proper etiquette for others to send messages and reply to others. It's really rude not to reply. She is back now because she hasn't determined what attitude to respond to Guya before. After thinking about it for a while, she felt it was better to do what she wanted. Do whatever you want and let it go. She had no intention of the male lead, and the tone of reply was her attitude towards him. Rong Xian is really not free after school. She has to go to the hospital to see the wound on her face, and her throat by the way. It is really inconvenient to not be able to speak now. After returning, she went to class seriously. After a day of study, Rong Xian has another friend, a cheerful girl named Mu Xiao in front of her. Mu Xiao patted herself on the chest, "Rong Xian, I always thought you were difficult to touch, and I didn't dare to talk to you. I didn't expect that you are actually quite good." Rong Xian pursed her lips and wrote on the paper, "Thank you." With the beautiful font, Mu Xiao's face was full of surprise, but what surprised her more was Rong Xian's smile. "Rong Xian, your eyes are so beautiful when you smile, you should have smiled more before." Rong Xian bowed her head and wrote seriously on the paper, "I see." Rong Xian listened carefully to other people's suggestions. Seeing Rong Xian being so serious, Mu Xiao was rather embarrassed. "He, Rong Xian, let's add a WeChat account. I have questions in the future and I don't understand. How about you?" A good word fell on the white paper. After adding WeChat, there was a sixth person in Rong Xian's address book, Mu Xiao. "Look, life is actually not that bad. In this world, there are still many people full of sunshine and kindness." After school, the driver followed Rong Yao's words and sent Rong Xian to the Municipal People's Hospital. Originally, the driver had to wait for Rong Xian to finish seeing the doctor, and then her back together. However, Rong Yi had been urging the driver to go home quickly. Rong Yi has always been dissatisfied with staying with Rong Xian in school and after school. In fact, it is not that there are no extra cars at home, nor is it that the driver cannot be afforded. Don't have too many empty cars at home. It doesn't cost much to hire a driver every month. They can afford it anyway. But Rong Yao pays great attention to superficial skills. He pays attention to the places that outsiders can see, and he must not let others talk. He thinks that only when two sisters go in and out is a good relationship, so he has always let them in and out. As for what is happening at home, he doesn't care, and no one can see it anyway. Rong Yi and Rong Xian have always shared the same car and the same driver. Rong Yi snorted, "Feeling good? Next life." She doesn't bother to pretend to be a sister even if she is pretending to be a sister in front of outsiders. Rong Yi glanced at the phone, Guye still did not reply to her message. The loss on her face can no longer hide. One day, he did not return to her. "Don't you want to return, or didn't you see it?" Rong Yi could still deceive herself and others, believing that Guye didn't return her because she didn't see it. But when she thought that Rong Xian was Guyi's fiancé, she was as disgusting as she swallowed a fly. Rong Yi was impatient, "Leave, she is so grown up. and she won't be unable to return home. The driver hesitated, but Rong Yi immediately interrupted and said mercilessly, "But what? But, she doesn't know how long it will take, is she letting us waste time here? I'm going home to review, and the final exam is going to be coming soon. If I have the final exam I didn't do well in the exam. I must tell my dad that it was you. Because of you, I lost so much review time." The driver was speechless. He naturally knew that Rong Yi was making trouble unreasonably, so what could be lost in such a little time? But he was just a driver who was paid, even if he knew she was making trouble unreasonably, he couldn't refute anything. Rong Yi said sharply, "Can you open it? If you don't open it, I will call my dad and ask him to deduct your salary." After hearing this sentence, the driver directly stepped on the accelerator and drove away. Between Rong Yi and Rong Xian, he still chose Rong Yi after all. Rong Yi is more favored now, and her mother is Rong Yao's current wife. As for Rong Xian, she was just a mute who was speechless without her mother. All fools know which one to choose between the two. Ha ha ha, the red envelope of the last chapter has been issued. It is generally updated at a multiple of 3. Like I abducted the male protagonist, please collect it, I abducted the male protagonist. The literature update is the fastest. Rong Xian walked briskly when she came out of the hospital. She thought of the doctor's encouragement to her just now and asked her to try harder to speak up, and she should be able to recover soon, and her heart was full of expectations and joy for the future. When she arrived at the entrance of the hospital, Rong Xian found that the car at home had already driven away, and the driver did not wait for her. After realizing this, she was not surprised at all, nor angry. She thought that Rong Yi meant to drive the car away. Rong Yi's female partner is considered to be a lower rank in the female partner. She has a vicious mind, but her emotional intelligence is not enough, and she doesn't have many tricks. Most of the time, she is straightforward. Except for directly pushing the original body down the previous time, making the original body broken, the rest of her methods were not painful. Rong Xian looked around for a while, ready to take the bus home from the nearest bus stop. The transportation facilities in this city are very developed, and taking public transportation is very convenient. When Rong Xian was walking, the phone in her pocket suddenly vibrated. She took out her mobile phone and saw that it was Gu Yi's call. The phone kept vibrating, in a posture that she wanted to go on without connecting. She pursed her lips, stopped, and pressed the switch. "Don't answer my call." Rong Xian blinked, listening to Gu Yi's meaning. He had made a lot of calls before. It might be that all her attention was focused on the doctor's advice at that time, so she didn't notice it. "You give me your nose to show that you are listening." Rong Xian couldn't hold back Gu Yi's request, and a smile appeared on her eyes. What's wrong with Gu Ye? How can she use her nose to answer him? Maybe it was because he felt that his meaning was not clear enough. Gu Ye immediately added, "Not with the nose, but with the snort." Rong Xian snorted softly, and Gu Ye heard it right away on the phone. "Where are you now? WeChat, share your location with me." After hanging up, Rong Xian realized that Gu Ye had made a lot of calls and sent a lot of WeChat. She didn't deliberately not answer his calls, but she didn't answer so many calls. In Gu Yi's view, she should be deliberate. Rong Xian looked down and shared her current location with Gu Ye on WeChat. Sheng Xiao was also served. Rong Xian hadn't answered the phone before, otherwise at this point, they would have started to cheer. How could they still wander aimlessly on the street? Ning Zikan was a little curious about seeing Gu Ye not angry. "Boss, if she doesn't answer your call or answer your WeChat, you are not angry?" Gu Ye moved lazily to retract the phone, opened the Lincoln rear door, bent over and sat in. When the car door closed, Ning Zikan realized what Gu Ye had said. He said lazily, "What's so good about being a little dumb?" Ning Zikan clasped his fists in both hands. "Okay. You are the boss, you have the final say." When the group of people arrived at the place where Rong Xian shared their location, Shang Xiao put his head out of the car window. Where is the little sister-in-law? Although Shang Xiao was not convinced by Rong Xian, even Guye called her little sister-in-law, he naturally wanted to call her little sister-in-law respectfully. Hao Qiang laughed twice. Even if the sister-in-law is standing in front of us, we probably won't recognize it. Also, from beginning to end, they didn't know what Rong Xian looked like. In the end, Guye, with the kind of man, or his magical instinct as Rong Xian's fiancé, accurately locked Rong Xian. Wearing a mask, a single ponytail, carrying a school bag, and wearing a long pink down jacket. It should be her. Rong Xian waited on the spot and just a few people from Guye arrived. They came here in an extended version of Lincoln. As soon as it stopped, it attracted the attention of countless passers-by. Rong Xian didn't know what Guye was looking for. She took a few steps forward. Just as a cold wind blew, Rong Xian subconsciously raised her hand and touched her ears that were red with frost. The winter here is really cold. When Guye came over, he didn't know why he noticed Rong Xian's hands first. It is undeniable that these hands are very beautiful and white, but the problem is that there is no engagement ring on these hands. Guye didn't know why an absurd feeling suddenly rose in his heart. His parents said to let him marry, okay. The little daughter-in-law can't speak, she doesn't know what she looks like, okay. But he was wearing a ring, she didn't, he couldn't be okay. Guye took a few steps forward and grabbed Rong Xian's hand. Where is your ring? Ning Zikan was stunned from the side, and then screamed crazy in his heart. Boss, you just said you wouldn't be angry with a little dumb, what are you doing now? Rong Xian took the ring with her, but she didn't wear it on her hand. She always felt that she was a high school student, it was strange to wear a ring on her ring finger to go to class. Guye was originally full of anger. He lowered his head to ask what Rong Xian thought. It was at this moment that he saw Rong Xian's eyes. Very pure eyes, not the kind of charming narrow peach eyes, but more attractive than peach eyes. Her pupil color is the most extreme black, and the sun shines in it, shining from the beginning. He can even see his own figure in her eyes. The eyes of the little mute were really beautiful, and seeing the dazed, innocent, and pure black, his anger instantly faded like a tide. Forget it, what's so angry with her? He has to be a good individual this time, and can't bully a little dumb who can't talk. Guye released the hand holding Rong Xian's wrist, stretched out his palm, and signaled Rong Xian to write on it, and his tone returned to his usual calm, "Daughter-in-law, where's your ring?" Rong Xian quickly wrote a few words on it, "In my pocket." In order to write faster, the font was still a bit sloppy this time, but Guye could understand it strangely. Which way? Rong Xian's eyes rounded. Is Guye going to get the ring in her pocket by himself? Thinking about this, Rong Xian took a few steps back, and then took out the engagement ring from the pocket of the down jacket. Guye took the ring and put it on again, "Don't take it anymore." Rong Xian looked down at the diamond ring on her finger. According to the plot, there are still 2 months before their dissolution of the marriage contract, and 2.5 months before the heroine appears. She doesn't think there will be any changes in the plot, because people's personalities are not so easy to change, they should still make the same choices as in the book. At this time, Hao Qiang saw something falling on the ground. It should have fallen out of his pocket when Rong Xian took the ring. He picked it up, took a look, and said uncertainly, "This is scar cream." Rong Xian nodded when she saw it. This scar cream was prescribed by the dermatologist in the hospital just now. The doctor asked her to use it again in a few days, saying that after using this, the abrasions on her face would not leave scars. But Hao Qiang didn't know. Seeing Rong Xian nodding, Hao Qiang didn't know what to say. No wonder Rong Xian wears a hat at the engagement banquet, and now she wears a mask again. It turns out that she has scars on her face. Now in their hearts, Rong Xian was just a scary little mute with unknown scars on his face. I don't know why, but I feel more distressed for Guye. Hao Qiang laughed awkwardly, preparing to give Rong Xian the scar cream again. But he was robbed by Guye midway. Guye, read the instructions carefully. How is the effect of this ointment? Rong Xian wrote on her hand and showed it to Guye. Yes, yes, pretty, good, yes. Guye wrote down the name of the ointment in his heart, and then passed the ointment to Rong Xian. Hao Qiang urged on the side, what are you doing next, eat first or go there first? After speaking, Hao Qiang reacted generally and automatically shut down the microphone. Rong Xian wears a mask, it is obviously inconvenient to eat. As for Hai, she is a little dumb, Hai Mao Hai? Guye put his hands in his pockets and said to Hao Qiang, let's do this for today, I'll take her home. Ning Zikan said, boss, then your birthday is not enough. Rong Xian knew what was going on after hearing this. It turns out that today is Guye's birthday. Let's talk about it next week. Guye celebrates 2 birthdays every year, and one birthday has no effect. Listening to Guye's words, the group of people said nothing. Boss, that car. Sit down. Okay, boss, goodbye sister-in-law. After Hao Qiang and the others left by car, Guye said to Rong Xian, let's go, I'll take you home. At this time, as the weather forecast predicted, light snow began to float in the sky. Snowflakes fell one after another. In the cold wind, Rong Xian also took the hat that came with the down jacket. I have to say that the snow scene in this city is beautiful and artistic. Guye was very familiar with the city. He took Rong Xian all kinds of shortcuts and arrived at the door of Rong's villa in a short while. But even for such a short distance, some snow accumulated on the two of them. Arrived. Rong Xian nodded, and she walked a few steps towards the door. Guye suddenly asked lazily behind him, little daughter-in-law, don't you say anything to me? Rong Xian thought for a while, turned around, and wrote the 6 words Guye, happy birthday on his clothes. Because some snowflakes fell on it, it was quite obvious that these 6 words were written on it. Guye sighed. This birthday gift should be the most shabby gift he has ever received when he grows up. Only 6 words were written on the clothes, not even a card. All right, little wife, you can go back. Rong Xian nodded. At this moment, Rong Yi was standing at the window. Just now when she saw the sky was starting to snow, she couldn't help showing a smug smile on her face. She asked the driver to take her home first, and she didn't know how Rong Xian would go home, whether by taxi or by bus. In short, Rong Xian would be very embarrassed if he didn't have a special car to pick him up. Whether it is taking a taxi or waiting for the bus, it will be very troublesome. Rong Xian was right in embarrassment. She wanted to see Rong Xian's embarrassment from the window. But at this moment, what did she see? She actually saw Guye personally send Rong Xian back. Not only did he send her back, Rong Xian was still writing on Guye's clothes. How dare Rong Xian? She said, why Rong Xian has been calmer recently than before, not as irritable as before. It turned out to be a change of strategy. I have to say that Rong Xian succeeded. This must have sent Guye back deliberately, but Guye looked at the face of Gu Rong's family and really sent her back. Rong Yi felt like a fire was burning inside. She regretted it. I knew she was waiting for Rong Xian at the hospital door. Even if you wait a few hours, it's better than Guye sending Rong Xian back. She really made a mistake. After Guye watched Rong Xian arrive home, he turned around and took a photo with his phone backhand and sent it to the brothers. Because the weather is very cold, even after a period of time has passed, the 6 characters on the coat have not been melted, and you can still roughly tell what the characters are. Guye, what do you think of the birthday present my daughter-in-law gave me? Hao Qiang, this wave is very 666. Sheng Xiao, it's fine, at least I didn't forget. Ning Zikan, eat melon in the back row. Old J, how do you fat for? Inexplicably sweet? Guye raised his eyebrows, paused with his hand, and somehow collected the photos. He originally wanted to delete it, but then he thought that since it was collected, so be it. The birthday present from Rongxian was too shabby. Guye, something is better than nothing. Like I abducted the male protagonist, please collect it, I abducted the male protagonist. The literature update is the fastest. While eating dinner, Rong Yao suddenly said to Rongxian, today seems to be Xiaogu's birthday. Don't forget to say happy birthday to him later. Rongxian didn't have any reaction yet. Rong Yi almost jumped up after hearing this. Today is Gu Wild Day. Rong Yao glanced at Rong Yi faintly. Only then did Rong Yi shrink her neck, stick out her tongue, and stop speaking. Actually, Rongxian had already told Gu Ye a happy birthday, but she was inconvenient to speak, and even if it was convenient, she didn't want to explain more. You are now Xiaogu's fiancé. On his birthday, you must not forget to give him a birthday gift. Don't let people say that our Rong family has no manners. Rong Yao is like this. He does superficial skills very well and pays great attention to human relations. As long as it is visible to others, he pays great attention to it, so that outsiders can't make mistakes. I'll give you some money on the card later. After you send the gift, remember to show me what you give. Rong Yao is not short of money, nor is he so stingy, but he is afraid that Rong Xuanyan will violate the sun. After receiving it, he did nothing and deliberately challenged him. If she didn't say anything on Gu Wild Day, then what would the Gu family think about allowing them to host their family? This kind of behavior will inevitably be offensive and make their Rongjia look impolite, so he did not forget to add such a sentence in the end so that she would show him the bill later. Rongxian pursed her lips and agreed. Instead of letting Rong Yao leave the money to Jining's mother and daughter in the future, she might as well help him spend more. At this time, Jining said softly from the side, "Husband, should Yi and I also give Xiaogu something? Speaking of which, everyone will be a family in the future. Should we also express his birthday?" Rong Yao didn't even think about it, and agreed, "It's okay, you can figure it out by yourself." Rong Yi's face glowed, and the corners of her mouth were never closed with joy. "Dad, did we personally deliver the gift?" Rong Yao frowned and glanced at her. "Otherwise? Would you let the birthday man come to pick it up?" Rong Yi hurriedly shook her head and denied, "Of course not, it must be delivered by our own hands. This shows that we have a solemn attitude, right?" After learning that he would be able to go to the family again soon, Rong Yi was happy. Rong Yao said to Jining, "You can put more snacks on the gift, which is for the youngest son of the Gu family. You can't make any mistakes." Jining's tone softened by 2 points, "Husband, I know it in my heart, so don't worry." After dinner was over, Rong Yi anxiously took Jining out to buy Gu Yi's birthday present. As for Rongxian, she went back to her room after eating. She wasn't going to spend her time buying gifts, anyway, she didn't know what Gu Ye wanted, she felt that the money was enough. Anyway, if you have money, you can buy anything. This is the most real thing in the world. Thinking about this, Rongxian found Gu Yi's WeChat account and directly transferred him 5,000 yuan. Normally unmarried couples should be transferred between 5,000 and 2, but she and Gu Ye are in different situations. She didn't want to be too ambiguous, so she put together a whole. WeChat in this world is a little different from WeChat in her world. WeChat in this world also incorporates the function of Alipay. As long as you transfer money, you can directly deposit it into the other party's balance without receiving it, and there is no daily limit. Before Rongxian had time to put down the phone, Gu Ye directly transferred 10,000 to her. She gave him 5,000, and he directly transferred her 10,000? What is this operation? Xian? Gu Ye? Xian, that money is a birthday gift for you, so you can buy what you want. With that said, Rongxian transferred another 30,000 yuan to Gu Ye. She didn't know much about luxury goods before. After wearing the book, she became rich, and she learned a little about the various luxury goods in the world. She found those famous for luxury brands. A casual jacket costs tens of thousands, let alone watches or the like. There is no cap on the price of the watch. She can't afford to give it away, so let's give him money for a coat first. He can buy whatever style he likes. As soon as Rong Xian finished the transfer, Guye directly transferred 60,000 to her. She found out, no matter how much she gave him, he directly returned to her twice. Is it fun to throw money at each other? God knows that she didn't want to hit him with money, she was just completing the task assigned by Rong Yao, and by the way, she spent a little more money on Rong Yao. Unexpectedly, now that she didn't spend any money, the money in her account had increased. Xian, don't transfer money to me. This is a birthday present for you. Guye, do you think I will be short of money? Rong Xian fell into silence when she saw Guye's words. Yes, he is not short of money at all. As the most favored child of the Gu family, his parents really soon spoiled him to the sky. Before he was an adult, his assets under his name had far exceeded that of his older sister and brother. No matter what he wants, he can buy it himself. But Xian, this is somewhat of my mind. Guye, if you transfer money to me, you might as well give me a card to be more considerate. For some reason, Rong Xian felt that Guye on the phone might be a little angry. Also, if she is richer, how could she beat Guye? He doesn't lack anything. It's a good idea to switch to someone else for money. Isn't there a popular saying in her world, please use money to insult me? Of course, this is just a joke words, but it also brings a little real feeling to it. Who doesn't like money? But changing to Guye and giving him money directly, might it really be an insult? Rong Xian sighed. If the other party weren't Guye, the birthday present she prepared would never be so perfunctory or careless. But the opponent is the male lead, and she is just a female partner who will be out sooner or later. Knowing that the heroine will appear sooner or later, she really doesn't want to, nor can she have too much involvement with the heroine. Xian, I see. Guye returned an expression. Then send a card. At breakfast the next day, Rong Yao asked Rong Xian, did you give me a gift? Rong Xian said, under Rong Yao's urging gaze, she took out the phone. Yesterday she deleted part of the chat history, only the part where she transferred money to Guye, and the last expression Guye sent. In fact, even if so many chat records are deleted, there is nothing unusual about this conversation. Rong Yao frowned when he saw Rong Xian turn 35,000 to Guye. He has a bad tone, what's the matter with you? Why are you so perfunctory to your fiancé? Rong Xian pursed her lips, she had been so perfunctory on purpose. She is a female partner, it is not good to be too enthusiastic about the male lead. But Rong Yao didn't know, he made a final decision, I will add another gift later, have you heard? Rong Xian nodded at the thought of the card promised to send Guye. Rong Yao looked a little better now. He said, next time our family will go to Gu's house to give Xiao Gu gifts. Except for birthdays, you can also give him gifts from time to time on other holidays. Although money is very tacky, I have to say that you use money from time to time. Keep your relationship together, the effect is pretty good. Rong Xian lowered her eyes, lowered her head and drank porridge silently. She doesn't agree with Rong Yao's view. Perhaps Rong Yao is such a person, with impeccable skills on the surface, and he will never be soft when it comes to spending money, and he can easily spend money to make Jining and the others happy. Yes, but he used too little truth. Money can indeed be used to maintain relationships, but can such relationships last? In the end, maybe it was just full of the copper smell of money. After all, between people, true love is far more important than money. Unfortunately, Rong Yao would never understand this. Rong Yi bit her lower lip. She didn't expect that Rong Xian already had Guyi's WeChat account. But she did not. In her dreams, she wanted to get along with Guye and add friends, but after she missed the things for so long, Rongxian didn't work hard and did it easily. Why? Is it just because she has a good grandpa? But it doesn't matter, she will rely on her own efforts to request Guyi's WeChat. She looked up and interjected, Dad, when shall we go to Gu's family to give gifts? Rong Yao finished his last sip of porridge, put down his spoon, wiped his mouth with a wet towel on the side, and said, I will contact Gu Dong first to see when their house is free, and then go. Although Rong Yi is a little disappointed, she also knows that Gu's family are very busy and rushing to the door may cause trouble to others. She cheered up and said with a smile, Okay, Dad. After speaking, she took out her phone and sent another message to Gu Ye, Gu classmate, today is another day full of vitality, go duck. Although he has not responded, as long as she can send him a message, she is already very satisfied. After Rongxian arrived in the classroom, Tong Yu and Mu Xiao soon discovered the diamond ring in her hand. What's happening here? Tong Yu was a little worried. Xian, are you really engaged? Mu Xiao exclaimed, with a look of disbelief, engaged. Rongxian nodded. Tong Yu opened her mouth, closed her mouth, then opened her mouth again, and then closed her mouth again. This was repeated several times. She looked like she wanted to say something, but she was embarrassed to say it. Rongxian immediately knew what Tong Yu wanted to say. Before she walked through, the original body smeared Guye and said a lot of bad things about him. Just yesterday, Rongxian found a few pieces of paper torn by the original body in the drawer. The paper was full of resentment towards Jining's mother and daughter, as well as dissatisfaction with her fiancé. As a friend of the original body, Tong Yu has naturally seen those words more or less. The original body made it clear that she didn't want to get engaged, and Tong Yu naturally stood on her side unconditionally, but in the end she was engaged to the fiancé she hated. Tong Yu was also a little curious and worried. Rongxian slowly wrote on the paper, I'm fine, don't worry. Tong Yuezhi took a closer look at Rongxian and found that Rongxian no longer resisted as before and resented the marriage contract. She was finally relieved. Before, she was really afraid that Rongxian would do something to escape the marriage. But at the same time, she became curious about Rongxian's fiancé again. Who will be engaged to Rongxian? But her EQ is not that low, so she has to ask clearly. If Rongxian was willing to tell her, she would say it sooner or later. Mu Xiao was full of curiosity, but she didn't even ask Tong Yu to ask anything, so she closed her mouth and prepared to ask after she got closer to Rongxian. Speaking of the engagement banquet, Rongxian thought of the attempted escape from her original marriage, and the slander of Guye everywhere. In the end, Rong Yi knew about these two things, and she burst out unintentionally. These two things are also the biggest one in the book to allow the two families to dissolve their marriage contracts. Rongxian is naturally not afraid of Rong Yi breaking the news. Even without these two things, it would be impossible for her and Guye. Thinking of this, she put these two things down completely. Xianyu Rongxian doesn't care about such trivial matters at all. She calmly took out the colored paper and crayons that she had just bought in the school commissary, and prepared to make a birthday card for Guye by herself. Since she agreed to Guye before, she will do it. Modified a bit. Double update today. Like I abducted the male protagonist, please collect it, I abducted the male protagonist. The literature update is the fastest.